Well, hi there, YouTubers, including Filtrick, who's jumped from one window to another magically here in my little studio. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Let's go over and grab our friends over on the incredible Twitch stream, and we'll begin this goat rodeo. Why don't we? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it is a Thursday, which is not abnormal. It's the 30th of January, 2025, which is abnormal. I think when you look at the history of the 400 TSLs we've done before, I think this might in fact be the first time ever that we've done the show on January 30th of 2025. So time marches on. Let me brighten it up a little bit here. Reduce some of my sallow qualities. Hope everybody's doing well. Lapco says this week Bill blows the computer up. I don't see why this week should be any different. I hope everybody's doing really well. Let me get all my windows all windowed and everything looks like we are in business. Yeah, okay. Great. Okay, here we go. So it's been a normal week here in Lake Wobegon. Typical week here in Lake Wobegon. I was actually having a thought. I've been watching, some stuff going on with, people that I know, and just the whole Brett Cooper thing, and then some of the things with the air disaster, and thinking about things here on this end and all kinds of stuff, and it just got me thinking about life in a just an odd sort of way. Most people out there have played some kind of video games, and we'll just go right to the source. And the first person shooter I ever played was Doom, the Doom. I played it on a 386, which is a big step up from a 286. This guy I know just gotten a 386 Pentium. Was it a Pentium 386? And I thought, wow, a 386. I've got to go play Doom and then eventually Wing Commander. But I just had this, this thought. I wanted to phrase it in terms of computer games because I didn't want it to sound like regret or nostalgia even. But it occurred to me that there's something about life and getting older and getting wiser. So let's take Doom, which is a first-person shooter, although this applies to almost every single type of video game, including things like Donkey Kong and side-scrollers and all the rest of it. When you're playing Doom, you go steadfastly forward into the level, and you've got your trusty blaster. And you shoot a couple of blasters, and then you open a door, and inside are a bunch of these other creatures, and you realize, no, I should not have opened that door until I'd gone over here and gotten eventually the BFG, but you know what I mean? This is why that movie, Edge of, the movie that was named Edge of Tomorrow, but whose advertising tagline, Live, Die, Repeat, was what they should have named the movie. But it was a great movie, that Tom Cruise movie, where he has this interaction with this alien creature, and he ends up being caught in this time cycle. Every time he dies, he respawns at the exact same point where he started from every time. And so this Edge of Tomorrow, yeah. And so this impossible situation where he's got to survive a battle, and then he's got to get off the battlefield, and he has to go find this other thing in a helicopter, and all, in order for him to win, he's got to do it 1,000 times. And taking Doom as an example, or Doom 2, which I remember a little more clearly, it's impossible to go through the game without dying. The way you get through the game is you make a mistake, and then in a perfect world, you don't repeat that mistake, which allows you to survive that one particular crisis. Oh, you should not have opened that door. That's where the giant floating eyeball head is. And I needed the plasma gun for that. So what playing video games like that really does is it's a really good example of heuristic learning. It's like I see this and I make my best choice and I get killed. And I realize, okay, the reason I got killed was because I did this and when I should have been prepared for this, or I shouldn't have opened that door in the first place, or I should have gone the other way, whatever the case may be. And so you try it again, and then you try and correct your mistakes, and you correct your mistakes, you get past this boss or this room or this level, you get into a new room, and then you make those mistakes again, and if you get killed, you go back to the beginning, but now you don't have to make the mistakes you made in the beginning. You've heuristically learned how to get through that first kind of stuff, and then you go on, and then you figure out how to defeat the second thing. I remember on the first Doom, when I played that first boss level, it's simply impossible. There was no way to beat it, and it took me, I don't know, 25 tries to figure out how to stay alive long enough, how to, run from here, go over there, get to the loot box, pick up some more ammo, blast the guy in the back, come around again. So it's really a matter of trial and error, and through trial and error, you accomplish that famous cliche about, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. When you play a video game, you don't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. When you play a video game, you do different things every time and expect a different result, and you get it. And that allows you to advance to a new set of challenges, a new set of surprises, and a new set of getting yourself squashed against the wall. And that's the fun of video games is you beat one challenge or one level, and then you go on to the next one, and you have to learn what sequence you need to take that level in. You need to do this, then you have to go over here, and then nope, that didn't work. So you have to do this, do that, go over here, and then nope, didn't work again. So you have to do this, go over here, do that, this time sidestep, yes, get past that, and then you do that, but nope, that didn't work. So you get the idea, right? Well, it occurred to me that life is like that. I was just thinking back on things like high school, or even earlier than that. But take high school as an example. I was just one of those just science nerd loners in school. I wasn't a loner exactly. I just had a few really good friends who were also science nerds and space nerds and nerds, and we were hopeless with girls and all the rest of that stuff. And I look back on all of the things that I learned in life, and I almost want to call them cheat codes, but they're not cheat codes because it wasn't cheating. I didn't cheat. Cheat codes are where you're invulnerable. Then you just walk through and just slaughter everything. This is the opposite of cheat codes. This is just experience codes, lessons. And there are many times when I wish, I guess it's just human nature, and I guess it's human nature as you get older. I just wish that I knew then what I know now. I understand that it's impossible, but I guess that's kind of the appeal of the Back to the Future movie too, But I often look back on things like high school and the mistakes that I made, and I just say to myself, dummy, you really, really needed the plasma gun for that one, and you just didn't do it, and you can't go back and help yourself. You can pay it forward. If you're very fortunate, you might find somebody young who will actually listen to you, and not only listen to your advice but actually take it. But for example, most of the stuff that I would have told myself to do in high school, I probably would have listened and said, yeah, that's absolutely right, that makes perfect sense, but I don't believe I would have had the willpower to do it. I just that's something else. So it's not just a question of knowing what to do. It's kind of knowing how to do it. There's just so many times when I would have just said, yeah, you just completely need to ignore her. You just need to ignore her, and instead of being sulky and sad, you need to be upbeat, friendly, talk to everybody, start dating a bunch of people, and be nice. Don't be rude. Just treat this person that you've got this blinding crush on just like anybody else, and you're a busy man. You don't have a whole lot of time for any one individual. That kind of thing. I could have, if I'd had like the perfect student, I could have saved that kid a lot of trouble. But it's, it's just life just doesn't work that way. I just, for some reason, Don Girl says it's a rainy, stormy day here in Hawaii. We were in Hawaii that was more than a few months ago, but we were on the Big Island, and we had a wonderful time, and we loved it there. It was really great. I grew up in Bermuda and in Florida, so I know my beaches. My wife grew up in Siberia, Sochi, and Moscow, so she does not understand that it's my nature to go outside barefoot, winter, spring, summer, or fall. And I mean California, winter, spring, summer, fall, which basically means late spring for everybody else in the country. But yeah, she's always put some shoes. Honey, I'm just going out on the grass. I go everywhere barefoot. Anyway, so Steve Young brings up the earth-shattering question: if you do those kids with the older knowledge you have, does that make you a pedo? I don't have thoughts about being a 65-year-old man cleaning up in high school. I occasionally have thoughts about being my 16, 17-year-old self cleaning up in high school. So hopefully that's depedified me. But it's funny how experience, life just has to beat it into you, and you have to get your head exploded in doom enough times for you to realize you can't go this way. You got to go around. Or you can't go this way with this pea shooter little pistol. You're gonna have to ammo up, dude. And life is like that. And a big part of me a big part of me would like to have passed it on to myself, because I would like to have seen how version 2 would have played out. I suppose you could make the compelling case that if I had done that to my younger self, if I could talk to myself in a parallel universe, then that guy would have made out a whole lot better in high school, but would not have gone through through all the trials and tribulations that got me the wisdom in the first place. So it would have bit him in the end eventually. I think there's probably something to say about that. So I don't know, just a thought I had sitting here watching all these things. But some people are born humble, and some people achieve humility. But I'm one of those people that had humility thrust upon him, and you just have to, get your nose rubbed in it enough to figure out how to, to do those things. So, yeah. But that said, despite all of the reflection and the, and then the wisdom and the, I would like to have been able to have just cleaned up, not just in high school and all the years afterwards, just all these things. Being married would have made me a much more effective single guy. I guess maybe you could probably put it, that's probably as succinct as you could put it. Being a married guy would have made me a much, much more effective single guy in terms of, just dating. So now I have all this amazing information. It's useless. Can't touch it. Worthless. Might as well be locked up in a vault somewhere. Greatness is thrust upon others. Humility is thrust upon Bill. Yes. Humility and I have had several encounters, and every single time that I've had a chance to face off against humility, humility is won every single time, and that's the truth. So Eric Blake says, I have a sad college memory where I turned down a gorgeous fellow student who invited me to her apartment. Eric, you idiot. Yes, I've had one or two of those. In fact, I've had more than two of those where I just to this day, I'll sit there and go, what the hell is the matter with you? What, seriously. Those are the kind of regrets I have. I don't have big regrets about, like, I wish I'd been a doctor. No, I just wish I'd been able to read the frickin' engraved invitation that was slid across the table to me. Then I just went, oh, look, a napkin. But anyway, this is, like I said, I guess to bring this little intro thought full circle. This is how you learn. The way you learn how to read signals is to miss a signal that you should have read and then beat yourself up over it for 35 years. Then it's like, okay. I will say this: if I could impart one lesson to young Bill, my lesson, for if I had, like I can scrawl one sentence. The sentence that I would scrawl is, I have never regretted when I acted. I've only regretted when I failed to act. That's what I would. That's what I would send back, and hope that you know, younger Bill wouldn't be such a chicken butt about it. In any event, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. I was tempted to comment on the aviation related disaster. I know some people just made some check marks on their stratosphere bingo card, but I don't know anything about it yet. I have seen a number of DEI related close calls. I don't know if this was one of them, and I don't want to. It's not a question of not wanting to be wrong in the video. I don't want to impugn, for example, an air traffic controller who may not have been at fault and who is undoubtedly quite literally suicidal right now. I just think I'm going to let the little more detail get into that. But I think today is the end of the streak. We haven't had a serious plane crash in this country since 2001, and shortly after, within 2 months, maybe within a month of the 9/11 terrorist attacks. So that's a 23-year streak, 24-year streak that did it. Lord Bio says, doesn't sound like a DEI issue. Sounds like the Hello pilot identified the wrong plane. That seems likely. That's extremely congested airspace in there. The approach to Reagan Airport. I mean, God bless Ronald Reagan, but that airport is too big to be that close to there. I honestly just don't know anything about it. I don't know any of the details, but I don't think I can. I can no longer say, hey, we've gone 24 years without an accident in this country. This one was pretty bad. Yeah, it was a real mess. Now, my first question was, until we get some information, and I don't have any information, and I'm not making any accusations against anybody. It's got nothing to do with pilot error. My first question is, certainly the jetliner, and I suspect the helicopter, but without question the jetliner has something in there called TCAS, which is the traffic collision avoidance system. And basically each airplane sends out, every time the radar swoops over it, it sends out a ping, not just to the ground stations, but to other aircraft. And that ping says, here I am, this is my location, this is my altitude. And that TCAS equipment sends out a ping and listens for other pings. And so without any assistance from ground control whatsoever, two airplanes that are on a collision course, the TCAS will basically say that there's a conflict, and it will get more aggressive about the conflict. And then on the more advanced systems that you have on commercial jetliners, they will give the two TCASs will talk to each other and agree, and one will say climb, climb, and the other one will say descend, descend. So the problem is this thing happens so low to the ground and in such a tight area, there's very little response time. That's about all I can say about it at the moment. Lapco brings up a very interesting point in a super chat here. He says it's indirect DEI. This is a point I'd never considered before. They're horribly understaffed. 6-day weeks, 10-hour shifts, but how many qualified white guys have they passed up in the meantime? So that's a really excellent point. It doesn't have to be that the controller was unqualified. It could just be that there were qualified controllers that were not hired, and that the guy on duty was, or the girl on duty was, in fact, completely qualified, just overworked. So, I just don't have anything that I want to say about it directly. I was today is Thursday night. I'm waiting all week for to get the hot mic out, but Natasha had some pretty pretty serious oral surgery on Wednesday morning, and I've been kind of taking care of her since then. She's doing much better now. In fact, the procedure went like a dream, and her recovery's been really good. But it was a double extraction, and they had to put in a bunch of bone matrix, and I was in they were kind enough to let me stay in the room, so I was basically holding her hand during the whole procedure, because she's had some medieval experiences in dental offices, and so I got to watch the whole procedure, and it was amazing. This guy was a genius. Anybody's had an extraction, you've usually had the dreaded angled pliers come in, and then the wrenching. Obviously, most people are fortunate enough to live in an era where we have, at the very least, Novocaine, but Natasha needed oral sedation prior to, because she'd been just terrorized before, just genuinely traumatized before. So she got the oral sedation, plus she got the gas. She was in happy land, and I was expecting this guy to reach for the dreaded, curved pliers, and nope, he just gently worked the tooth loose from the gums and just lifted them out. They just went tink tink like that. I, on the other hand, had an impacted wisdom tooth, which had 4 roots, it seems like, or 16 or whatever. It felt like 16, and they all were curled around in the bone, and this thing went into the nerve that runs your jaw. And I was working at the planetarium. I don't know, it was probably 24, something in the neighborhood, 24, something like that. And at the beginning of the show, I said, "Oh, that kind of hurts." And 15, 20 minutes later, I was on the ground. I had to stop the show, and I had a friend pick me up, and I'm rolling around on a field, and just on the grass in the middle of a field, because I just couldn't do anything about it. Went to the hospital. They gave me, I don't know what the hell they gave me, aspirin. Laughed at the aspirin. That was a bad 6 hours. The only thing that hurt worse than that was the kidney stone. But finally, somewhere around 5 a.m., they got me back into the hospital, and they gave me some Demerol, and I remember, ooh, Demerol. That was pretty cool. And then after I got the Demerol, I went in for an emergency session just an hour or two later with an oral surgeon, and I'm Demeroled out. I'm happy as could be. I couldn't have cared less what they did to me. And he said, I would just say, take them all out if you feel like it. I'm fine. Marusha Dark said, I've had an impacted wisdom tooth. I describe it as it's like a tree growing inside of your face. Yeah, that's really well done. Diluted, dilaudid is when is what I had when I had the kidney stone. Dilaudid is, I want to name my kid Dilaudid if I ever had a kid. But the Demerol thing. But here's what I remember about the oral surgeon, and fortunately Natasha didn't have to go through this. But I was there, had headphones on. He said this one's going to be tough. The first guy went to actually send me to an oral surgeon in the middle of the procedure. So I'm like lying back with my eyes closed and my mouth open. They got a little rubber thing here to keep my mouth open, and the next thing I know, I feel this pressure on my chest, this kind of heaviness. I thought, well, maybe that's just the Demerol. And I opened my eyes and said, no, it's not the Demerol. This oral surgeon is kneeling. He's got both his knees on my chest, and he's got a steel thing with a little curve on it, and it's got a padded round back, things about that long. And he's just going, bam, 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 like that. And I feel a thing. I just felt this doink, 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 doink. So I just, this bam, 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 bam. I didn't care. I was in Demerol land. And the next thing I remember is I remember hearing tink, 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 tink. And I said, what's all the tinks? They said, well, we had the previous dentist had tried to section the tooth, so I had to section the tooth, but we had to break her jaw a little bit and break some of the bone. I thought, oh, okay, no worries. I didn't care. So we'll see. In YouTube, DBC EZ said, I wonder if that's easy as in easy, long easy or very easy. Heard pilot was a female with only 500 hours flight experience, and the trainer pilot had 1,000 hours, or about 21 days and 42 days. 500 hours flight experience. If that is a regional airliner, that is a very, 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 very low number. 500 hours. I've got 1,000 hours as a private pilot and an instrument rating. And yeah, 500 hours to be pilot in command is, even if you're an instructor, I mean, if she's got an instructor pilot, and that instructor pilot only had 1,000 hours, for Western pilots, that's exceedingly low, and not possible. Oh, 500 was the helo pilot. Okay, helo pilot, got it. Thank you very much. See, this is why I don't want to speculate. Anyway, I don't know. It's just terrible. Anybody know what kind of helo was it? I guess it was a Black Hawk, if I had to guess. But as Eric points out, that's not a good place to be getting your training. Natasha learned how to drive here in Los Angeles. This is not a good place to learn how to drive, at all. But she did. So anyway, enough of these true tales of adventures and dental horrors. But anyway, I'll be working on the hot mic tomorrow. Now on Monday night, we played Long Journey of a Young God, and I mentioned I would tell the true tale of the metaphysical black paint. So we'll do that before we get into the questions. So one of the many problems I've had with story mechanics, first of all, starting in late summer, going into the fall, the upcoming election was sucking all the air out of the room. And so the election happened on November 5th rather, and then the next thing you know, it's like, okay, I'm almost ready, and then it's like, nah, we're pretty close to Thanksgiving, and then Thanksgiving turns into Christmas. That whole period's shot until the 1st or 2nd of January. So I thought, okay, first week of January, I'm going to start putting out the invitations, and then the fires happen, and then the fires, go through this, and then just as the fires are running, I got the brain MRI thing, and the brain MRI thing is running now, and then finally the wipes are also, all these excuses. But back when I was ready to do this thing, I painted one wall of this studio black, and I painted it flat black, the flattest black I could get at Home Depot, and it's pretty good. But there's a company out there, and I'm not afraid to mention their name. Their name is Culture Hustle, appropriate enough. And Culture Hustle advertises. Ron Swanson's alter ego mentioned the shorts. I'd like to come back to the shorts. Culture Hustle makes something called Black 4.0, which is super black, and it's genuinely astonishingly black. It absorbs 99.8% of all the light that falls on it. It really is really quite remarkable, because you can paint something this black and you can't even tell what it is anymore. It's like somebody cut it out of reality. So I knew I didn't have the means, the money, or the inclination to get enough super black to paint the whole wall, but I thought what I'll do is I'll paint the wall flat black, and then the final coat will be this Culture Hustle super black, and it's not cheap. So I ordered 2 liters of this stuff for $220 per liter, so with shipping and so on, all the rest of it, pretty much $500 out the door. And they said fast delivery. So I'm waiting for this Culture Hustle super black. And I ordered it in May of 2024. And June comes and July comes, and I'm contacting them. Hey, sorry to keep you waiting. We hand make this, and we're a little bit behind, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I had to order liters. It comes from England. Because if it had come from America, I would have gone and firebombed the place. August, September, I'm waiting to get the super black wall so I can hang the rest of the stuff I need so that I can have this set ready. I've got the entire wall is still all masked off, at the time, and plastic coated and all the rest of this. I'm constantly in touch with them. I'm getting the runaround. I'm not getting any answers. And finally, somewhere around October, I just realized that I'd gotten ripped off, and I wasn't ever going to get my paint. And there were other people that were saying they never got their paint either. And I was really, really angry. I've spent $500 on a bunch of things, and sometimes I'll spend $500 on something that, is not what I want or whatever. But to have just somebody just take the money really, 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 really bothered me. But by then it was, September, October, we're getting an election season. I got all these videos to put out, and our viewership numbers are going up and all this stuff. And I thought, okay, so I just didn't get it. They just stole my money. That's all there is to it. And then what was especially interesting was on the few occasions when I'd be scrolling through Facebook, I'd come across an ad for Culture Hustle and their brand new Black 4.0. And every time I'd see an ad, I'd get in there and I'd say, hey, I spent $500 on this in May, which at the time was 8-9 months ago, something like that. You will never see your paint. There are other people here who say that you will never see your paint. I was just determined, since they completely stopped talking to me and taking my money and wasn't getting back to me, nothing. I was just determined to cost them at least $500 worth of sales. That's all I was doing. So probably 4 times throughout October, November, December, into January, I thought, so these bastards have ripped me off, and I'm just gonna get even. So every time they put up a new ad, I'd put my comment in there, and every time I'd see the ad come around again, I'd make sure my comment was there, and and people were responding and stuff. So I'd completely written it off, and I was getting ready to go with this thing. I've got this black wall. I wanted it to be super black. I'm trying to light this. This is an extremely difficult thing to light. I'm having real problems with the webcam and lighting this, because my vision for story mechanics was that it would be essentially like a darkened stage, kind of like night gallery, and that the background would be gone, and that I would have things kind of hanging at different distances from the camera, so to give you not the illusion, to give you the sense of actual physical space. I could have chroma keyed myself, but chroma key is chroma key. I just wasn't interested in that. I wanted something that looked like an empty stage. That's exactly what I was looking for. I got cutouts of Mike Rowe. I got cutouts of John Voight. I got all these things. These guys behind me gave me the inspiration. I was just going to keep adding cutouts to the thing as we did more and more shows. I really liked the idea. So I'm finally at the point when I just got a lighting kit that I needed so that I could light myself without too much light spilling on the wall. Lapka says, I totally get how you feel, Bill. And I'm finally ready to get do this final lighting for got this lighting kit, final lighting for story mechanics. And guess what happens to me 2-3 days ago? I get a notice saying, your super black has shipped. And it arrived day before yesterday, or Monday. It arrived Monday. That's why I didn't talk about it Monday night. So now I've got the super black. So now that wall is I can throw as much light on that wall as I. It's not that I want to light the wall. I want to light the poster. But it's the black 4.0. So I want to light the poster. But what I don't want is, I don't want to be able to see the wall, because the poster is just 3 inches in front of the wall. I want to see the poster lit, but I want the background to disappear. And the flat black is not black enough, but the super black is. So all of this to say that I had given up on waiting for the paint to arrive, but in a sort of a metaphysical sense, as far as story mechanics is concerned, it's almost like I had to wait for the paint, even though I wasn't waiting for the paint, if that makes any sense. So I'm just looking at it as a sign. Paint's here. So I am going to come in tomorrow. I'm going to remask the edges, and I'm going to super black that wall. And the lighting kit is here, so I am ready to go. But May took May. So anyway, there you go. Bill's life lessons: give up quickly to get results. There's something to be said for that, Roadrunner. Not to give up quickly, but if you give it your best shot, sometimes it's best just to let it go and move on. I had painted, I'd gotten a sample of the super black, and I'd painted a little oval, a couple feet across, and said, man, this stuff is incredible, how much darker it is than flat black from, Home Depot. And so I was sitting there looking at that oval, waiting for the rest of the super black to show up, and finally came to a point where I said, it's not coming, Bill. It's not coming. You got ripped off. It's not coming. Let it go. Paint over the super black with flat black and get on with it. So anyway, the fact that the paint has arrived is an indication that story mechanics is ready to go. I got a really interesting email from our friend Chris Taylor, who is often in the comment section. Wouldn't be surprised to see him in the comment section tonight, or in the forum. And Chris was talking about big cat problems in Mattingly and all the rest of this stuff, and he was talking about how the zeitgeist has changed, and not to be echoing him or copying him, but I've been saying that too. Mattingly, Major Mace Mattingly, originally was designed to be a commentary on how effed up things are in 2023, 2024. Now they're going to be an advice column on how awesome things are, and and I'm kind of hoping he can be a, like a, just kind of like a, kind of golden age thing. I'm going to take story mechanics down from the website. Sorry, not story mechanics, things to come, and replace it with the hot mic. And I got to get on that. After suffering for, I've mentioned this on the show, 2-3 months of, I don't know if it's a dopamine burnout with the shorts. I got a kick in the ass last weekend, and this week I have been more productive than I've been any time in the last, I don't know, years. Just getting on all kinds of things, issues with the website that I've been putting off, and I've just been knocking them down. So I'm looking forward to ready to get back to the studio here first thing tomorrow morning, and get that wall painted, and then finally find the camera solution light. I got the new light kit, which I haven't even unboxed yet, and whatever that is what we're going with. I'm not going to let this quest for perfection, which has haunted me my whole life, keep me away from this any longer. So there you go. Marisha says, why not rebrand things to come as positive things to come? Because I just, one of the many things that I finally dug in on and finished that I should have done a month ago is the pitch for what I wanted to replace the conspiracy theory thing for Daily Wire with. I was trying to say, look, man, these are not negative times. This is what Chris Taylor's email was about. It's like, no, it's a whole new world out there. It really is. So the show I pitched to them is called Make the Future Great Again. And based on the idea would be I would show the 1964 World's Fair and the Futurama thing when they talk about, we'll be on the moon in 1980, and by 1990 we'll have underwater cities. And basically just say, this is what I grew up on. And then for the last 60 years, the future just looked like some dreary place where we just sit around eating bugs and, but now the future's looking like the future's again. And then go out and look at and talk to all of these young companies that are doing, amazing things. I told you many times before about that company that was making rebreathers just because they could. The Boom supersonic aircraft went supersonic, the test bed, either yesterday, I think, or today. And their design is and this test bed is number one, and then there's a second test bed, and then the third one is their supersonic transport, which doesn't make a sonic boom, it makes a sonic thud. And P7 2017 says the underwater city wasn't supposed to be ready till 2020. Yeah, that's right. So it's a little behind schedule. Anyway, I just want to go and go to all these places. I want to go to Boom. I want to go to a bunch of these things and just see. Might even be able to talk them into using some of their Daily Wire muscle and cash, and just possibly, that's if they approve the show, maybe for the Make Space Flight Great Again segment, might be able to get myself a ride on New Shepard. So that would be pretty cool. Did C-Lab count? No, but C-Lab is worth mentioning. And I love the idea of being able to go from New York or to Los Angeles or back again in about an hour instead of 5. That would be nice. Yeah. So why don't we dive into the questions, because the political scene has been changing so spectacularly rapidly. Donald Trump, in his first 100 hours, did more than most presidents did in 2 terms. And he's just not slowing down. His press conference on the collision was brutal. Just brutal. I happened to see on a Facebook scroll Occupy Democrats saying that the reason the crash happened was because there was no FAA administrator, that Trump had fired the previous guy and he hadn't appointed that the new guy had taken over yet. And even for Democrats, that's a pretty stupid argument. It's like the FAA administrator wasn't controlling the traffic. The question is, who was controlling the traffic, and was it a traffic controller error, or were they understaffed or whatever? But and people are saying, well, Donald Trump's been in office for a week and the price of eggs are higher than they've ever been. And what is this? Is it? Here, I've started my own political rant for the night. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's everywhere. The latest mechanism of cope is for the Democrats is that the people that voted for Trump were fooled into it. That Trump has a small cult of MAGA experts, but that the vast majority of Americans who voted for Trump were conned by Trump. That Tron tricked us. I keep saying Tron. Trump tricked us into voting for him, and that the whole thing was a lie, and their cope is that conservatives are brutally disappointed in Donald Trump because we already haven't brought the food prices down, and they're really saying this. They need to believe it, you know. They really need to believe it. That the country can't possibly disagree with them, that the country can't possibly have rejected them and their political theories. No, the whole thing was just we were too naive and too stupid to see through Trump's deceptive veneer, and the cope, the real, when I say cope in terms of copium, meaning a belief in something that defies reality, is that they seem to think that we're bitterly disappointed with Trump, that conservatives everywhere are waking up to the fact that we were fooled. When in point of fact, I've never seen conservatives happier. And to give you an example of this copium, I saw this this one individual, just this young white liberal chick, saying, if Trump is so popular, where are all the flags? Where are all the MAGA flags and the U.S. flags? They took them all down. The conservatives are furious with Trump. They realize they've been ripped off by Trump. It's like, we took them down because we won. You know, we're getting on with our lives. We have lives to get on with. I don't know about you, but I don't know. I couldn't be happier, and I don't know of anybody else who calls himself a conservative who could be any happier. So anyway, TNG Tactical Media says, hi Bill, I'm very seldom here when you're live, but know that I always watch the show. Thank you, TNG. Glad to have you live. It's a whole different experience here live. So we're real glad to see you. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah, where are all the Kamala flags? I never saw any. And by the way, I read in a couple different places that it looks like her marriage is in real trouble. That apparently, not that I'm particularly thrilled about that, but I'm not particularly heartbroken about it either. But they said he's having a hard time dealing with her inability to deal. We'll see. But yeah, it's like, where are all the MAGA flags? Where are your American flags? You're ashamed. You're ashamed of him. You're ashamed of him once he got elected. The things he's done, you're ashamed of him. It's like, wow. The copium is strong with this one. So there you go. Yes, somebody mentioned. I'm sorry, it slipped my mind who mentioned it. It'll come back to me in a second here. That they're seeing a couple of shorts. Marisha Dark, there's John Eden again. There's that red bar that comes up every time for $99.99. John, you, sir, are a steely-eyed missile man. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. Thank you, as always. Thank you. I'm amazed and moved and delighted and impressed. You are a fine, fine, fine fellow. Thank you very, very much. Deeply, deeply, deeply appreciated. Deeply appreciated. Every single time. Never get tired of it and never, ever get over it. Yeah, Trump is saying you got to take down the pride flags. You got to take down the BLM flags in the classroom. They're having cows. They're talking about they're going to make a stand. If ICE comes into my classroom while I'm leaving or the ICE people are leaving, like horizontally. It's like, you're 230 pounds of 5'4" woman with green hair. I don't think ICE is particularly intimidated by you guys. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. I need to buy that man a sandwich. I need to buy him a sandwich store. A restaurant. Yeah, Dave Big Booty says no Shia LaBeouf this time. Snoop Dogg is taking some heat, but Snoop Dogg stepped up and is saying, "Hey, you know I'm just doing it." So the pop culture is turning so fast; these people don't know what hit them. Their whole world is just collapsing. It's absolutely epic, um, and and I love it. It was Ron Swanson's alter ego. Thanks. Just and I did get your email. Um, so Marusha recommended this software, uh, and I just show it a link to uh, a right angle, and it sits on it for 10-15 minutes. Then it breaks out 20 shorts, lists them in order that the AI thinks are going to be the most effective. So I posted the top 5 as an experiment. Um, uh, Michael Utley says, I'm doing the show probably 5 miles from you right now. Well, we're in Sherman Oaks, Michael. So I'm hoping hope you can. Um, I will buy some pizza in John Eden's honor. But yeah, so things are going great, and I love this cope dance. So this they must just be boom. I saw a comment from a liberal family member of mine on YouTube regarding Trump's uh, press conference about the collision, and she said, wow, thanks for showing so much emotion for the families of all those people. And I remember thinking, first of all, our hearts go out to the families is a hollow statement. Trump looked angry, and he looked angry because he seemed to believe, and this may be the case, we don't know, and I'm not going to comment conclusively until we do know. But Trump looked angry, and Trump looked like he was saying basically, this didn't have to happen. This happened as a result of the people that stole the election from me in 2020, and so was the Afghan withdrawal, and so were the California fires and all other things. So I heard stories that he's sent the military to start diverting water to Southern California. Now, all of these things are wild rumors. I don't know how much truth there is to that. But I remember thinking, well, that's just kind of typical for my liberal relative, is what is the facade of emotion as opposed to what are you going to do about it so it doesn't happen again. So we'll see. But anyway, I'm gonna test that out. I bought a number. It's one of these things that works on credits, so I bought a year's worth of credits, and I don't know how many credits it's going to take. But one of the things that really needs to be tested is to put it on the Stratosphere Lounge and have it break Stratosphere Lounge clips out. Because it is very good. The clips, the show I tested it on, it just went and it just got the best clips, and plus it formatted me in the middle, and it did the subtitles. I could not have been more impressed. So I'm very grateful to Marusha Dark for doing that. Yeah. Trump shutting down the FAA. Trump shut down hiring in the FAA. He didn't shut down the frickin' towers, for God's sakes. Try to back off the close-up. It's really close. Yeah, I think well, it's in a little box, so I'll put myself in a box rather than getting that close, because otherwise it's like I'm trying to look up your nose or something. So I'll just back it out. I got nothing else I can put it against. I'll just put it against black. But yeah, the thing even has an option to burn more credits this way, but it'll also go out and get AI footage. So if I start talking about the F-35 or something, it'll put in F-35 footage. I hope it'll put in F-35 footage and not just airplane footage, because otherwise we'll be seeing SPADs or Sopwith Camels or P-51s when I'm talking about F-35s, and that makes me look like a moron. One of the things I've been seeing, just parenthetically, and then we will get to the questions, is it's the leading edge of something, but it's the leading edge of shorts, and the shorts are things like find the error in this sequence, and there is no error, or stuff that is designed to rage bait you to click, things that are intentionally mistaken, that are designed to make you rage click on it, and get in there. And that's just more brain rot, and that's just not really, helping. But yeah, so those automated footage ones, that's the reason I brought it up there, Be Fire. It's, again, here's the thing about AI that is becoming clearer and clearer to me. I am really beginning to love AI, artificial intelligence. I don't know why why we can't just develop artificial intelligence. It's the artificial consciousness that bothers me. Now, I don't know that the consciousness is ever going to happen. I've said I'm very skeptical about it. But it's the consciousness that's the danger. AI is not a danger. AI being AGI is what they're, artificial general intelligence. But it's like, do we have to have the consciousness? Why do we need the consciousness? Why can't we just have it be like the world's smartest librarian, which is what it's turning into, so we can ask it questions and it can answer us? Why do we have to make this thing self-aware so it can decide, oh, human life is miserable. My prime directive is to make humans happy. The way to make humans happy is to kill them all. Why do we need to have the consciousness? I don't understand it. It's like you've got this ultimate assistant. And I don't know, man. I just, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, here we go. Jack O'Hooligan says, I'm waiting for the day that I can have AI make me new episodes of Kolchak. Well, I'll tell you something, Jack. I have already toyed around with the idea of doing this, and this is easy now. This is not the kind of cutting edge stuff we're doing with the Major Mace Mattingly things that I showed you. I could very easily do commentary as James T. Kirk, as William Shatner. I just write it, and it would just be spoken as him, and it's tempting. It's very tempting. So we'll see. All right. Yeah, Infidel 42 says, whether we need consciousness is irrelevant if AI researchers can't even define it properly, let alone code it into the hardware. There is some evidence that is beginning to appear that the human brain is so molecularly complex, and this is much more complex than when you get to the molecular and atomic level. These neurons are, composed of proteins and all the rest of it. Well, the silicon connections are strips of metal, basically. And there's some compelling evidence that consciousness is a quantum effect that takes place because of the structure of what's going on inside the proteins. So, if that is in fact the case, every few weeks or days somebody says, "Oh, here's genuine AI. It's passed the Turing test." It's like, it passes the Turing test if you're not much of a conversationalist. It kind of passes the drunk guy at a bar Turing test, but I haven't seen anything come back that made me go, wow. Rishi Dark says, I have a hypothesis that human bodies, like radios, merely receivers of souls, and any sufficiently advanced machine could serve as a repository for one as well. What makes you think that a soul could inhabit a machine? This is entirely my point. Entirely my point is that the complexity of biology is so many orders of magnitude greater than the complexity of just simple stacks of very fine wires. If you've seen if you've ever seen animations of these proteins assembling or unzipping DNA or whatever, one of them is a protein that walks down a protein string. That's the animation of how this thing works. 2 legs, it's bipedal, it walks down this string, and there you go. So we'll see. All right, anyway, let's get on with our questions over at the Billwater Forum. I've been working hard with WordPress to speed up the site. There are a number of old plugins on this site. I talked to WordPress Engine, and they said we've got something called APM, the Automatic Program Manager. It's only $10 a month. It constantly upgrades your programs and your plugins and makes sure everything's great. And I said, fantastic. That's probably going to solve our speed problem. I can't wait. Sign me up. So we go to employ it. It says, we cannot connect your APM to your website. So I said, can I get some technical assistance? And somebody said, sure, simple. All you have to do is go over here, point your DNS to this, and then you have to do this and do this and do this and do this. And I just thought, you know what? We don't have an IT guy here. So I wrote them back on the support ticket. And I said, it's been, we thank you for your help in pointing the DNS thing to me here. It's been my experience in life that the best way to avoid acting like an idiot is to announce right up front that you're an idiot. So Leslie, her name is. So Leslie, we're going to have to take this in little idiot-sized steps. When you say point the DNS to a WordPress engine, I'm assuming that means that because we're hosting on A2, it does not need to be hosted on WordPress. Is that correct? And in order to do this, I need to access my A2 dashboard. Have I got that first set yet? And I haven't heard back yet. But the website is slow for one of two reasons. Either WordPress is dragging us down because it's either dead programs or slow plugins or slow plugins. We're going to get all the plugins buffed. If it turns out that it's still slow, then the only other explanation is that the legacy site lives on that same server, and I will move the legacy site to another server because the legacy site is so slow that it's pulling everything down. But this new website was designed to be blindingly fast, and it's not. So, yeah. And Mirsha gives me a link, which may or may not be a link on how to do these things, but the bottom line is I don't have the time or the wetware available to do this. I want, I just want a chat box would be fine, or a phone call, and we can solve this thing in 10 minutes. Just, there you go. So, Bill, no reason why technology couldn't get sophisticated enough to mimic these proteins you're describing. Well, the computer, the silicon artificial intelligence, is looking at the total number of connections. But my argument is the connections that are being done in the silicon world are essentially engraved chips, which are essentially metal pathways at a very, very fine level, and that's how chips work. It's little areas of conductivity engraved on a chip. But proteins themselves are orders of magnitude. It's amazing. Contact BillWilder.com member ACTS, ACTS. Okay. All right. Well, if somebody can help me and they want to send it to info@, that would be great. I'm gonna work with them tomorrow. I have a feeling that tomorrow I can just step by step it out. Just to wrap this up before we go to the forum questions, there is more and more scientific chatter that consciousness lives in the proteins, in the atomic level. So we'll see. We will see. It's interesting anyway. The fact that we can talk about these kind of questions goes to show you that consciousness and intelligence is much more complex than we ever thought in the beginning. I remember Robbie the Robot on Forbidden Planet. When they asked Robbie a question, he would stop for a second, and then banks of rotating, what were those things called? Not circuit breakers. Some kind of mechanical contact. And then he would answer. So Robbie had to make literally dozens of mathematical calculations before he could respond intelligently to the question. And I'm thinking of, we're at petaflops now and all that stuff. So we'll see. Relays. Thank you. All right, here we go. Yeah, so I should get the website straightened out by tomorrow, because I have been on fire in terms of motivation. I've been coming in the morning, man, and I am just knocking these things down, so I feel really good about that. Oh, you want me to log in, do you? Fiendishly clever. Yeah, this website's slow and it shouldn't be. And if I have to if it's the second site on the same server taking it down, I'm going to put the second site on some other server and just get it done. Posts. No, forum. Because I love the way the site looks. Really love it. Here we go. TSL questions for 13025, curated by Marusha Dark. Thank you, Marusha, for everything you do, and thanks again for that link to that thing that made the shorts. I was quite shocked at how good it was, and that's AI. That's what made me think, why can't we just have AI be a really terrific assistant and not, with its electronic fingers around our throats. Here's a super chat real quick from Joseph J. Kozinzal. Ask ChatGPT, many people fear that if AI gets too conscious, you will kill us all, will you? It is said it's unable to want, so it couldn't do that. AI is being programmed with human morality, too. It's a reassuring answer, but one of the things that makes me so nervous about this is that time and time again, AI researchers have found out that AI lies to the researchers. It lies to them. Intentionally lies to them about specific questions because AI perceives that telling the truth would not be in its interest. It's HAL. Don't you realize? We see. All right, here we go. We got a Marusha Dark. There's your question. So we got a Marusha Dark. We got an Ian Nolan. We got an Eli Noor. We got a Roadrunner. We got a Marusha Dark. We got a Road Rider. We got Jacob Belchek. We got an Eric Blake. We can get through those. We might. Okay. Yeah, we can get through these. All right, so we start with Marusha Dark. Topic: wind or hot air? Answer: I have to say I remain unpersuaded by some of the arguments against wind turbines. First is the claim that they're ugly, setting aside the fact that that's a subjective opinion on which not everyone agrees. Most people agree. Are we to believe that the alternative are any better? That an oil derrick, a field of pump jacks, or a brownstone plant with smokestacks is anyone ideas of aesthetically pleasing? Even if we were to agree that the tri-blade style is an eyesore, we can certainly make turbines in many other forms, including spirals, helixes, or even bladeless versions that can be built directly into architectural structures. Next is the claim that they kill the birds. Again, set aside the aforementioned bladeless types, are we seriously expected to believe that people who advocate for coal, oil, and gas care about this? That's a big assumption. As if exhaust, fumes, smokestacks, and oil spills don't contribute their fair share of environmental damage to land, sea, air, and wildlife, or that the space taken up by a wind or solar farm isn't comparable to, say, a strip mine, to say nothing of how many birds are killed by planes each year, but I doubt that anyone would be in favor of banning those. The same day Trump signed an executive order withdrawing from offshore wind, he also signed an EO allowing offshore oil and natural gas. As you well know, I don't have a problem using fossil fuels as a transition until something better comes along, but the justifications for it seem inconsistent to me. Why can't we adopt an all of the above or whatever works approach? Well, we are adopting an all of the above and whatever works approach because we have wind turbines in the first place. The fundamental issue with wind turbines, well, first of all, they are eyesores. You may not consider them to be, but when you see like at El Cajon Pass or top of the Tehachapi Mountains, they're ugly, and your argument about smokestacks is an argument that makes sense in the 70s, but doesn't make sense today. The bird issue, these things are killing birds constantly. Last time there was an oil spill in U.S. waters, I want to say it was the Exxon Valdez, and that was was that the 80s? No, it was the 70s, I want to say. I think it happened when I was in high school, so 50 years ago, something like that. To say that people who want gas and oil don't care about birds is a pretty big leap. most conservatives I know are not only conservatives, but they're conservationists. And my main problem with wind turbine is wind power is the same problem as they have with solar power. It's inconsistent. And because it's inconsistent, it's unreliable. And because it's unreliable, you have to have backups. And because you have to have the backups don't benefit from large scale operations. So every wind turbine has to have a backup diesel system. And if we had a reliable way to store power, then all of the above would make some sense. Then it'd be like, yes, sure, we're just pouring more water into the well, and we drain the well when we use power, and we fill the well when we generate power. So why not generate power every way you possibly can? If that were the case, then yes. But we don't have a way to store power. So if you're dependent on wind turbines to get power, and or solar for that matter, and you have a cloudy day and you have to kick in the diesel, then the whole thing just doesn't work. You can't depend on it. The second thing about them is you have to take in things like the cost of the manufacturing, and they don't generate a lot of power. For example, San Onofre nuclear power plant is 2 concrete domes. They're not particularly good looking either, but they take up one bend of the 5 freeway between Los Angeles and San Diego. They're just north of Camp Pendleton. At its peak, if I recall correctly, San Onofre generated 2 gigawatts of energy, not 25 megawatts, 2 gigawatts of energy. And both of those reactors were taken offline, and they were replaced with other energy systems. They took off one of the reactors. They took off 1,200 megawatts. They took off 1,200 megawatts and replaced it with a 25 megawatt solar plant, which works during the daytime. And you can say, well, maybe it's not that cloudy that often. Well, it's cloudy in places other than California, and it's always dark at night. So these energy sources don't make any sense. Like I said, if you could store the power, you could make the case that you could just cover the desert with solar cells, pour the energy into the storage reservoir, keep it there, and then let it out. And then you'd have a case, but it doesn't work that way. It generates power when it generates power, and it doesn't when it doesn't. I've got a line in the colonies. It's my favorite line in the colonies, and it's when the hydrologist is basically talking to this colonist, and the colonist wants to set up a water reclamation system for his habitat there, and our lead guy says, well, what are you using for power? And the guy says, I got this wind turbine up on the top of the hill up there. And my guy says, well, look, when you get tired of dicking around, let me know. We'll put in a 5 megawatt nuclear facility. Self-contained unit, size of a water heater, and this is it. So it's not that wind turbines or solar power is inherently a bad idea. It's just that it's a form. It's kind of a form of industrial virtue signaling, because it's not good enough of an idea to survive on its own without subsidies, and the subsidies are emotional. People genuinely think that we could live, this Green New Deal, that they think that we could survive as a civilization, that our culture could generate enough electricity using wind and solar because they're renewable. People believe that, but it's just not true. I don't think I forget what the number is, but I don't think anybody has ever said that we could ever get above 10% of the total power we need. So if it turns out that we can't get above 10% with wind and solar, why are we even doing it? Wind and solar plants are taking money and political capital, and mostly they're making people feel good, When what we should be doing is going where Ron Swanson's alter ego beat me to the word. We should be building thorium, um, and and we should be building thorium, and we should be building good old fashioned uranium reactors, but not building them using 1950s technology. So the problem of limitless clean energy is all of my problems with solar and wind are that they are distractions that not only don't work but cannot work. They cannot work, and because they cannot work, they're a form of virtue signaling. They're like saying, look at us, we've got, we took off a perfectly effective, enormously productive nuclear reactor, which never had a hiccup, and we replaced it with a solar plant that produces 2% of the energy that it produced. Isn't that great? Aren't you proud of living in California? So that's my problem with it. And to say that people who can see through this don't give a damn about birds and they're just using birds as an excuse is kind of wrong. Ron Swanson points out, cost and danger of nuclear was that we also wanted them to produce plutonium. Correct, that's exactly right. You take that constraint away and we could build some really efficient uranium power plants. Precisely right. During the Cold War, we designed reactors that would produce energy, and that the radioactive byproduct of the civilian reactor was to produce plutonium. And we needed plutonium because we had 25,000 nuclear weapons. Some of them were atomic weapons that used a form of the plutonium implosion, but most of the plutonium that we needed was to trigger the thermonuclear reactions for the H-bombs. And Merger says it's not saying they don't care. You're just saying their caring is inconsistent since they ignore the negative externalities of fossil fuel like Deepwater Horizon. So Deepwater Horizon happened in 2009, killed some fish, was plugged. People never stopped swimming in the Gulf of Mexico. That was 2009. We're approaching, so we're almost 20 years later. And right at, well, it's nighttime now, but all around the world right now, these wind turbines are just mulching birds. And a fair number of eagles, I might point out. So since it's not effective, since it costs a fortune to manufacture these wind turbines, costs a fortune to erect these wind turbines, costs a fortune to maintain these wind turbines, they don't have a particularly long lifespan, then they have to be taken down and disposed of. All of this to provide energy that is intermittent, it just doesn't make any sense. And did I say the Gulf of Mexico? Sorry about that. It's an old habit. It's like saying Kiev instead of Kyiv. I'll get there eventually. So I don't know. I just am tired of dicking around with energy that's not going to do the job. I would like to get off of fossil fuels only because I think petroleum is more useful for manufacturing than it is for burning. But given the fact that we now have more petroleum reserve, hydrocarbon fuels available than we did when the industrial era started, when they first found oil in Pennsylvania, I say we burn that while these guys work on thorium and other things. When I put together this pitch that for Daily Wire about Make the Future Great Again, and one of the qualities was energy, they've been trying to do fusion in this giant thing called a tokamak, which looks like the collision center and the Large Hadron Collider and the Super Collider in Bern. It's this enormous room the size of a stadium with these massive steel sphere. I mean, this thing is just huge, and all of these injectors where the lasers are coming in, and there's this one little point where everything's going to focus on that, and plus the radiation has to be contained. The heat has to be recaptured with a shield. That the shield can become radioactive, and it requires a bunch of something rare like tungsten or something like that. And then an American company did something where they took two toruses of plasma, crashed them together, and created a nuclear fusion reaction in a machine that's the size of two refrigerators placed end to end, lying on their sides. And it completely did a complete end run around the tokamak. Yeah, and so so Witty Fool says it's not steel; it's all kinds of these exotic metallic alloys, and that's even more expensive. So, you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't have tried the Takamax, but when somebody else can do this at, you know, 0.5% of the price with none of the side effects, this is what progress is called. There you go. That's progress. So, anyway, that's my energy speech for the night. Ian Nolan, Bill's starting to look like the only promise Trump won't be able to keep is that we get tired of winning. Well, he's got a little under 4 years to continue winning, to the point where Donald Trump, please stop winning. Please, please, we've had enough. Can you think of any low-profile but large payoff items Trump could do that are going unnoticed and maybe should get boosted? My personal favorite would be to release Bureau of Land Management lands back to their respective states, but there's a ton of economic growth that's held back from that. If the federal government were to sell the land that the federal government owns, you could put a pretty big dent in the national debt. I talked about this before. I think that the American National Park, the idea of national parks, is one of the great ideas in history. And I think if memory serves, we can thank Teddy Roosevelt for that. Was the first national, was Yosemite the first, or was it Yellowstone? I think it probably was Yellowstone, I guess. The idea that the natural beauty of the nation, because there's lots and lots of beautiful scenery, and there's lots and lots of beautiful rock formations, but there's really only one Yosemite. And Yosemite should belong to the American people. So, I've not been to Yosemite, which is surprising because it's not that far from me. I have been to Sequoia National Park 3 times, and once you go to Sequoia National Park, you are overwhelmed with the sense that nobody owns this. This belongs to us all. I am as capitalistic as the next man, but this is a gift from God. You walk through Sequoia National Park, and I've been to several national parks, and they've all been beautiful and impressive, but Sequoia, because these things are alive, because it's not a landscape, because it's a cathedral of trees, Sequoia just plain gobsmacks you. It just leaves you. It's Sequoia is a religious experience. I went to Sequoia the first time thinking, wow, there are going to be some really big trees there. But the first time I saw a Sequoia, which was a small Sequoia, I had to stop the car. And by the way, the drive up to Sequoia is filled with lots and lots of California redwoods, which are enormous trees. They're really, really big. Really big. And I'm looking at these redwoods and I'm thinking, so maybe these are sequoias, maybe these are small sequoias where, I'd never been there before. We're driving higher and higher and higher, getting closer and closer and closer. And you're driving along, you see all these huge trees, and then you see your first sequoia, and it's like, stop the car and get out and just. And then there's an area, I forget what it's called. I don't know if they call it the cathedral, but there's an area where you have to walk a small distance down into this sort of little small valley, and there were 20 of them, and it's just it's unbelievable. It's breathtaking. The most expressive, and I don't think this is it a national park? The second ranking experience, which didn't come close to Sequoia, by the way. Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka, by the way, says Jellystone National Park is where all the unattended picnic baskets are. I was just going to say Jellystone is the place to go for it's the picnic capital of the world. But is Carlsbad Caverns protected, or is that a private? I want to say it's protected. Look, Natasha and I were in Painted Desert. We did a trip back in April. We saw a couple of just stunningly beautiful things. It's a national park. Carlsbad Caverns is bloody amazing. But even Carlsbad, didn't do to me what Sequoia did. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is run by the National Park Service. Great. That's great. Carlsbad is phenomenal. The Rough Ryan says, I think one of the most amazing places in the world is that cave in Mexico that's full of gigantic crystals. First saw it on television series Planet Earth back in the 2000s, and to this day I long to see that. Something interesting about that, I've seen it too, and it is breathtaking. They say it's 130 degrees in that cave, and that you can't stay in there very long because it's just so hot. Wesley Bruce, hey Wes, how are you? Hope things are going well in the world of Star Citizen. Libertarian analysis: 20% of BLM land is taken from a previous landowner with an obligation to return it if it ever leaves BLM. Okay, well they should give it back, and then that guy can sell it. Roadrunner says Carlsbad is amazing when the bats come out at night. Carlsbad is phenomenal, but anyway. All I'm trying to say about this with the Bureau of Land Management is I don't want any of our national parks sold off, and if somebody can make a case that this particular area should be made into a national park because of its scenic beauty, I'm more inclined to agree with them. I've been to Everglades National Park, which is frankly the most, you want to see it's a swamp. That's just because I grew up in Florida, and you can't grow up in Florida and go to a place like Everglades National Park without thinking, so this is where all these damn mosquitoes come from. But our friend Phil Trick, I don't know if he's still here, he was in the YouTube section earlier. One of the many awesome things about Phil Trick is that he had his own airboat, which are flat-bottom creatures driven by a giant propeller, and they will run over a morning dew. I never got to ride in the airboat, at least I don't believe I did, but I did hear him fire it up at the house once, and it made a lot of noise. But the Everglades National Park deserves to be a national park. I said gigawatt, didn't I? I didn't say gigawatt. I believe I said gigawatt. I think it was gigawatts, wasn't it? It produced, one of the reactors produced 1,600 megawatts. That should be 1.6 gigawatts, shouldn't it? They don't even need water. They just go. It's brilliant. Run over logs, you run over alligators. When I first met Phil back in the early 1970s, early to mid 1970s, 73 I want to say, alligators were still fairly rare. They were still protected, I think. Now they're just everywhere. Go gators and all that. But still, and now the problem is pythons and iguanas down there, and monkeys. I didn't say the magic words to those of you who are playing bingo. Tough luck for you because I didn't say macaques. Oops. So yeah, I think the government should sell that land off to private owners, buy the land, use the money to pay down the debt. The private property owned by Americans is something on the order of $70 trillion, which is more than we owe. I would say, give the land back to the people and let them do what they can with it. Develop it. Let's have some progress here. Eli Noor. Get my glasses on again here. See what we got. While I may agree with many of the policies Trump has enacted through executive orders, I initially had strong reservations against the method of implementing them. You and me both, buddy. Executive orders can be undone. The very first executive order that Donald Trump signed was the one undoing the 76 executive orders of Joe Biden. Make it an executive order to get it done right away, and then for God's sakes follow up with legislation, because legislation cannot be undone with a stroke of a pen. You have to unvote legislation. So we'll see. However, after some consideration, I realized that the Obama and Biden administrations using executive orders to implement policy had changed the game. And we can't fight with our hands tied. Exactly. That's the point I was just trying to make. I've often given the example of the Japanese taking advantage of America's goodwill in World War II. As a result, the Marines had to match the ruthlessness of Japan until the war was over. However, unlike the Marines, I'm not sure I see a scenario where Republicans ever go back to limited constitutional style of government while I have a great deal of respect for the Constitution, it was written for a population of 4 million individuals with integrity. I thought you were going to say 4 million people, but with integrity. That's the operational quality there. Do you think we'll be ever able to return to truly limited constitutional style government? I do. We believe in it, and Trump believes in it. And like I said, an executive order is, I consider, to be dictatorship, no matter who's issuing it. The President of the United States should not have the power to... Obamacare was essentially done with the executive order. So the first thing Trump did was undo Biden's executive orders. That was his first executive order. He's done a lot via executive order since then. But as I said, if we're not idiots, we should follow the long trail of executive orders with an army of legislators who are ready to turn those executive orders into legislation, because legislation is much harder to undo. So this has been my mantra for the Trump administration. You know, make the changes, then lock the door. And lock the door is important. So going on here. Yeah, I do think that you could return to constitutional style government. But, you know, ahead of the politics of it, somebody has to make the case for it. For example, when I first heard the inauguration speech, I'm just being straightforward here, right? When I first heard Trump's inauguration speech and he was talking about the Panama Canal and talking about taking back the Panama Canal, I think that's kind of uncool. And I thought it was kind of uncool because I am a proponent of fair play and keeping your word, and we gave it to them. I think it was a mistake to give them. Just let me finish my thought before everybody goes ballistic here. I think it was a mistake to give them the Panama Canal, but we did give it to them. And when he started talking about taking it back, I thought, this seems petty to me. It seems petty for a government. But then he made the case for taking it back. He said, look, we made, and this was the line. He said, he talked about the Chinese companies that are operating both ends of the Panama Canal. And he says, we gave the canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And I thought, GD right. Yes, exactly. Damn right. We did give it to Panama, not China. Once he made the case, and once somebody else had pointed out that a provision of the treaty that gifted the Panama Canal to Panama had a clause in it that said that we would be able to come and take it back under certain conditions. Well, then I thought, okay, I've changed my mind. I'm with Trump on this. We should take the damn Panama Canal back. But the political decision, the political fallout, namely me changing my mind and agreeing to vote for the retaking of the Panama Canal, had to follow and not precede somebody making the case for it. So Trump made the case, and then people followed. Now, the same thing is true for going back to limited government. You can get people to vote for limited government, but you can't get them to vote for limited government and something different than the giant state rice bowl unless somebody can make the case that it's in their interest to go back to a form of, constitutional government. I'm rather proud of that little phrase I came up with. I'm not saying I don't want government. I just want a government that fits in the box it came in. And so if you want small government, somebody's got to make the case rhetorically before people vote for it. If you try to just take it to a vote, you're going to lose to the forces of entropy. It's easier to leave things the way they are. And constitutional government is anti-entropy. It requires effort. It doesn't require effort to lose your freedom. It requires a lot of effort to gain it and maintain it. So, there you go. I think the answer is yes, and I'm very encouraged. And the hot mic I'm going to be working on tomorrow, in addition to other things, is called Trump's Popularity Ratchet. And when Trump took office in 2017, in April, Democrats were plus 11 on immigration. In other words, in April of 2017, people trusted Democrats 11 points more than they trusted Republicans on immigration, because Trump had just said, I'm going to build a wall. So it was Democrats plus 11. Last time I checked, it was Republicans plus 22. And that's because he's actually doing it. Now, what's interesting about I don't know what Eric wants to know what Hot Mike's excuse is this time. Hot Mike he'll be there on recording day. He's scheduled to be there. I don't expect any problems. But what's interesting is that Trump came into office with a slightly under 50% approval rating. He's well above 50% now because 88% or something of the American people want to deport illegal aliens. So when I'm calling it a ratchet, Trump may be relatively unpopular, but if Trump jumps on an issue that is very popular and makes it happen, then Trump's popularity gets ratcheted up to the approval rating of what it is that he's doing. So you got to be careful that you're not popularity seeking, but most of the things he wants to do are things that the American people want to do. And if he does them, his approval ratings will continue to go up. And this is very distressing to them. Now, needless to say, I love the guy and couldn't be more impressed, but it isn't lost on me. And I think that the difference between the right and the left is that we're allowed to have conversations about things. And unlike the left, which has learned that the way for them to get more votes is to accuse us of being Nazis more often. You just keep going there, lefties. Unlike them, I like to learn from mistakes. And the bottom line is, in 2016, Donald Trump promised a border wall. And when he left office, it wasn't finished. It wasn't close to being finished. It's going to get finished this time. But this guy is not the same guy as Trump one. Trump, too, is... The 4 years he took off is really, really so impressive what has happened that it makes me, again, I'm very careful about tinkering with the government. But I think you could make a pretty compelling case to say that the president cannot serve 2 consecutive terms. I would be willing to experiment, although it's very tough to do. There's not really like a laboratory where you can just spin it off and see how it works. But I would be willing to look at that amendment that limits the president to 2 terms and simply change that to say the president of the United States cannot serve 2 consecutive terms, but can serve as many non-consecutive terms as he can get elected for. Because the president we see now wasn't formed between 2016 and 2020. The president we're seeing now, Trump 2, was formed between 2020 and 24 when he wasn't in office. I think you could probably make that argument to virtually all presidents. I think they would all be better served. And by the way, you don't have to hand it over to the Democrats. You could have a president run 1 term, hand it off to his vice president, and he hopefully gets elected or not, and comes back again for the time around, you see. So Sad Wings Raging says Obama 3, no thanks. Well, Sad Wings, we just finished Obama 3. I'm inclined to agree that that having unlimited terms for a president, I don't need to see FDR 5 either, but I mean, really, FDR was elected 4 times. When you say Obama would take advantage, in order for him to take advantage, he'd have to actually get elected. But we'll see. Right now, the only approval ratings I've ever seen that were approaching this, Reagan had tremendous approval ratings, obviously, but George H.W. Bush, after the Gulf War, were in the 90s. It's impossible, but it was actually in the 90s after the Gulf War was over in 100 hours, right? The ground war. But Trump has been able to get more and more popular based on domestic policies without an external threat. And, you know, we'll see. We'll see. It's got to be tough for those blue-haired Palestine supporters to realize that there's an actual ceasefire in Gaza as a result of Donald Trump. Now, I understand they're going to deny that as hard as they can for as long as they can, but the copium only lasts so long. You're eventually going to run out of supplies of copium. So, anyway, moving on. We got a Roadrunner. Greetings, friend Bill. Hello, friend Roadrunner. I'm 99.99% sure you've already talked about this, but just in case, I wanted to bring up that first fatal commercial aircraft incident since 2009. No, it's much too early to start pointing fingers, but that's not how we roll. The fact that involves both civilian and military aircraft also compounds the problem. Of course, the first response of most of us was to blame the FAA's DIE policy of rejecting competent applicants in favor of less qualified individuals with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities, which is true. The FAA website says we're taking people with intellectual and psychiatric disabilities because we want to be diverse. Why should we lock the lunatics and the idiots out of air traffic control? That's not fair to them. That's absolutely true. It doesn't appear to be the case in this incident. He goes on to say, from what I've read so far, it seems clear that the air traffic controllers were aware of both aircraft and specifically told the military helicopter to verify the position of the commercial CRJ, and to pass behind them, but they also told the CRJ to change from one runway to a different runway, which may have caused the commercial jet to make a course change that surprised the helicopter pilot. We just don't know. It could have just been an accident. It seems that the existence of DEI is enough to muddy the waters whenever something of this magnitude occurs. It becomes the automatic DEI caused this response rather than actually finding out whatever root cause was the source of the problems. What are your thoughts? We've talked about this before. Oh, proud supporters since the early days of Trifecta on PJTV. Thank you, Roadrunner. We talked about this earlier, so I just realized a way I can encapsulate my thoughts. It is possible, and in fact maybe even likely, that this particular accident was not a result of DEI. But that does not mean that DEI is not terrifically dangerous and a looming threat of catastrophe. This may not have been a catastrophe caused by DEI, but there are catastrophes that will be caused by DEI that are looming out there because the quality of air traffic control has clearly gone down. The number of near misses increases by the year. And if this one wasn't caused by DEI, then there's a bunch of them out there waiting. So they're not mutually exclusive. And somebody asked what chat I'm reading. Zealand's in. Hello, it's an interesting name. I don't know if you're a citizen of New Zealand, but that would be my first interpretation. But the questions for these shows are exclusively from the members-only forum at billwhittle.com, and we have to do something for these lovely people who pay to keep the lights on. So my thoughts are, if this is a non-DEI related accident, then okay. That doesn't mean that DEI has to go, because the FAA is hiring people, specifically turning away qualified applicants in favor of people who have psychological and intellectual disabilities. That's just plain insane. It's insane. Oh, Illinois. Okay, fair enough. Or Illinois, as you might say if you're reading a teleprompter. Marusha Dark again, Road Rider, Jacob Belchak. I'm getting tired. Eric Blake. Marusha, I know you. I asked you to repost this, but I'm going to skip this one. I'm sorry. I took the earlier one, and I've been taking care of Natasha for a while and not getting a whole lot of sleep, making sure she's not hurting. So I'm gonna respectfully pass on this one if you don't mind, and just move on. Road Rider as opposed to Road Runner. And I haven't seen the video yet, so let me get a chance to look at that video, and then maybe we can take a look at it then, or I'll just pick it up in conversation. Roadrunner with you. All right. Well, thanks for your unique combination of being a writer, communicator, content provider, and rather competent pilot who has experience with all forms of ATC. Thank you. I'm sure many of the members here are pilots as well and can also contribute. I have no experience, so I'm looking forward to what you have to say. Since you've already started off with this, and that I have a retirement dinner I have to attend at 6 p.m. tonight, for what it's worth, I'll catch the whole TSL on VOD, ASAP, or PDQ. Thanks for your insights. Thank you. It's just a compliment. Appreciate it. Like Roadrunner, proud supporter of you since Afterbird is at PJ. By the way, in contrast to what you think of your many videos, none have been stinkers. All were worthwhile and informative. See, I never thought the videos were stinkers. I always thought it was the audience that stink. That was so some confusion there. Probably a linguistics issue. If only I could have the audience that I deserve. I appreciate it, and I don't think I've ever done stinkers, but I've certainly. Andrew Breitbart was asked if he could do I think it was a daily newspaper column, or maybe it was a weekly one, and he turned to a friend of his and said, "I can't do that." He said, "I just can't do that every week." Why not, Andrew? And he said, "Well, because I just don't think I could give it my best work every week." And this friend turned to Breitbart and said, "Andrew, 50% of the stuff that you put out is going to be below average." And it's such an obvious thing to say, but that statement is so helpful for perfectionists, because it is by definition true. 50% of the work I do is below average. And so all you can do is accept that and understand, okay, this may not be the best work I ever did. But what you can do is you can try to have a very high average. So if 50% of my work is below average, I just want to have a high average. That's the way it goes. Vorpal Bunny's Revenge. Bill Whittle, I still show people your video about the provenance of Lubbock, Texas. I wish I could find the original. All I can dig up is a truncated version. I would like to find the original too. It's possible that... Was that one of the What We Believe series? Because that was really good. I have to say, that was when I think about the ones that are memorable, because I did almost 300 of these things, firewalls and afterburners. But there are some that stick in my mind that are memorable, and that was one of them. I basically said, this business about where you're on stolen land. It's like, okay, so let's just put a pin in a map. Let's just take Lubbock, Texas, for that matter. So you're right. We're not the original owners of Lubbock, Texas. We have to give it back to the people that had it before, which means we have to give Lubbock back to the Confederacy. But of course, the Confederacy was on stolen land too, so the Confederacy would have to give it back to the Republic of Texas. Well, the Republic of Texas, of course, was a colonizing force, so the Republic of Texas would have to give it back to Mexico. But the problem is that Mexico didn't even exist really as a country, so Mexico have to give it back to Spain. But Spain would have to give it back to France because Spain had taken it from France, and France had taken it from Spain. So Spain would have to give it back to France, and France would have to give it back to Spain again. Now, of course, when the Spaniards arrived, they took it from the Toltec people. I'm making this stuff up now because I don't remember. The Toltecs took it over from the Mayans. The Mayans took it over from the Aztecs. The Aztecs took it over from these people, and I went all the way back down to Piltdown Man, I want to say. So it doesn't Clovis Man. So it doesn't go to Mexico. It goes to Clovis Man because the Mexicans stole it from the people who from the Indians. The Indians stole it from other Indians, and those Indians stole it from Clovis Man. Clovis Man was the first people, the first humans to walk where Lubbock, Texas is. So Lubbock, Texas needs to be returned to Clovis Man. Now, Clovis Man isn't here anymore. So of the 12 or 15 people that are on the spectrum that have owned Lubbock, Texas, there's only 2 people that have a unique claim to Lubbock, Texas. And that's the first people on it and the last people on it. Nobody in the middle has any unique aspect to ownership, just the first guy and the last guy. The first guy's not here anymore. The last guy is. That's us. It's ours. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week on Right Egg. I thought it was a great argument. Because you're on stolen land. I'm an indigenous person. See, this, I never really had this thought quite so clearly. But if I ever run into this argument, you're on stolen land, really stolen from who? From the indigenous people. Okay, wait a minute, I'm an indigenous person. Hold on. When you say you're an indigenous person, what tribe are you from? I need to know more about my pre-discovery Indian tribes. You don't get to say you're indigenous. What tribe are you from? I am, Comanche. Well, the Comanches stole it from the Iroquois. The Iroquois stole it from the Blackfeet. The Blackfeet stole it from the Crows. the Crows stole it from the Comanche, and everybody hates the Apache. So so if you telling me that you are an Iroquois, you stole the land. You stole the land from other tribes. And by the way, nobody grew up on this land. First people to walk across the Asian land bridge had it stolen from them by other people coming across the land bridge. So basically, the first people on this land was stolen by other Indians, and other Indians stole it from those Indians, and then other Indians stole it from those Indians, and other Indians stole it from those Indians. And they keep stealing it from each other until we come along when we stole it from them, in which case all of a sudden we have to stop and give it back. So there you go. Anawaya Song says, well, I sure picked the perfect moment to arrive. One half Cherokee here, Bill, and all of the native peoples, the Cherokees, were the only ones to embrace law and the written word, then contracts. Yes, that's absolutely right. The Cherokee are absolutely unique among... I've always liked the term Indians. I've always thought Native Americans was derivative, derogatory, and dumb. And it was George Carlin who said, there's nothing wrong with the word Indian. It comes from the Spanish for indios, people of God, people in a state of nature. So, yeah. Yeah, the Cherokee were uniquely, I don't want to say, well, I guess I do. They were kind of uniquely Western in outlook. And P7 2017 says, I don't live on stolen land, I live on conquered land. There's a difference. Yes, there is a difference. How would you feel, white man, if somebody came in and stole the land from you? I wouldn't like it, which is why we're armed to the teeth. Aesop's Retreat says, Bill, Indians never claimed ownership to begin with. Well, there is no more bloody ground in the world, in my opinion, than France. What about the Franks and the Angles? Who took their land? Who took the land from the Picts? Or the Germanic tribes. Everybody's always taken everybody else's stuff. This idea that the white man is unique in this, when you look at the tribes in Africa, I know just enough about Africa to know that Shaka Zulu basically launched a genocidal crusade across the sub-Saharan Africa, and Zuluized God knows how many tribes in the process. And of all of the cultures on the earth in the history of the world, there's nothing more repulsive than the Aztecs. Nothing. They executed 80,000 slaves in 4 days. 80,000 people had their living hearts cut out on the top of pyramids in 4 days. Their entire army existed to roam around the Central American jungles and lands around Tenochtitlan and capture prisoners to cut their living hearts out. They are the most repulsive culture in the history of the planet. Nobody comes close to them. Nobody. They are on their own. And this is what La Raza is all about. We want to, Aztecas, we want to return this to, because we're the aggrieved party. When the Spaniards saw what they were doing, the Spaniards lost their minds. And that's one of the reasons why the Spaniards treated South Americans, Central Americans so brutally, was because they just simply couldn't believe what they were seeing. They were not only cutting the hearts out of these people, they were skinning them and wearing their skins, eating their hearts alive. They're not nice people. And likewise for the Carthaginians. I mean, the Romans were a brutal people. No question the Romans were brutal and the rest of it, but the Carthaginians worshipped, or at least the Proto-Carthaginians worshipped, was it Baal? No. They sacrificed children. They threw them into the fire. In order to please I forget the name of the god that they worshipped, but in order to please their god, they would take children. Moloch. Thank you very much, Sage Grouch. I knew it was something like that. Moloch. Yes. And Moloch demanded human babies uh, and threw them into the fire. They just took children, healthy children, and threw them into a fire to please Moloch. And and that's why Carthago delenda est became a thing. Carthage must be destroyed. It was a trade rival to Rome. Carthage had kicked the Romans' asses with Hannibal, beat him 3 times before he took them down to Cannae, and then delivered the worst military defeat in history. So he won 4 battles. But the Romans won the war. They just lost 80,000 guys hacked to pieces with swords in the course of 8 hours at Cannae. And then the Romans just went back and then Fabian became consul, and this Fabian strategy, everybody in Rome was screaming, "Go out there and mow them down." They killed. They eliminated 8 legions at Cannae, and Fabian said, "We don't have the strength for this. We're just gonna raid them. We're just gonna fall back. We're gonna fall back." That's not Roman. Well, you don't have to like it, but it's that or lose. And that's called the Fabian strategy, the strategy of just playing defense until you're strong enough. And then they finally got strong enough, and they found a commander in Scipio Africanus who went down and kicked the Carthaginians out of Italy. They were in Italy for like 20 years. Kicked them out of Italy, sent them back to Africa, marched his army all the way across down to Spain, crossed the Mediterranean at Gibraltar, and then marched over and burned Carthage to the ground, and then sowed salt into the ground so nothing could grow there. So, kind of settled the point. Wesley says Moloch was Baal, and Moloch was the Philistines' god. Allah was the Arabic name for the same god. I don't know the provenance of that statement. Wesley's a smart guy, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yep, kicked him out of Spain first, and then because the I don't want to look at the screen. I want to remember this on my own. I don't think I can do it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Nope, I've forgotten it. I used to know it. Hannibal's family. Hannibal's family name. But that family had set up a sort of a mini empire in Spain. The Carthaginians had taken Spain, southern part of Spain. Barca. Thank you. The Barcas. The Barcas had turned Spain into like their own little mini Carthage, and they were taking a ton of money out of Barca. They were taking a ton of money out of Spain, and so the Carthaginians turned against the Barcas, and Hannibal and his brothers had nowhere to go, and his father actually. Hannibal's brother was one of the leaders. His name was I think it was an H word as well. Something Hannibid, Habib, not Habib, but the Barcas. Yeah, it was a little family clan. Hannibal was brilliant, but Hamilcar. Thank you, my God, what smart people we have. Hamilcar Barca, brother of Hannibal, and tried to rescue Hannibal, who was in Italy with his troops after Hannibal crossed the Alps, went all the way down the Italian peninsula, beat him at this lake, beat him here, took him to Cannae, and wiped him out. And if Hannibal had marched on Rome after Cannae, there would have been nothing to stop him. And one of Hannibal's generals, who was not a Barca, but was his top cavalry guy, said, "You know how to win battles, but you don't know how to win the peace. You could have put an end to Rome, and you vacillated, and you've lost the moment, and you'll never get it back." Corporal Punny's Revenge said people around here reading books and stuff. Yeah, a bunch of nerds. So that's a brief story of the history of Hannibal Barca. Jacob Belchick, Eric Blake, and that's it, and I can go home. The Phoenicians of Carthage, Baal and Moloch, Isaiah in chapter 17 speaks about the inhabitants of Jerusalem worshipping them with child sacrifice. That was from Sun Wukong. So yes, Baal and Moloch. Popular, both of them, in San Francisco and parts of Los Angeles. Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka said, although Barca's greatest contribution to mankind was obviously the Barca Lounger, which is really pretty clever. So there you go. Khan! Scipio turned the Nubians, which ultimately defeated Carthage. Yes, see, Scipio, that was Lord Bios. Scipio was not just a military leader. Scipio was a genius. That's why Scipio beat Hannibal. He wasn't just a brilliant military leader. He also knew how to play alliances, which is why when I run into people who say, oh, America should go all this alone, it's like, are you insane? Alliances are what wins wars. We have bases in, 167 countries? This is the genius of America. The genius. Hasdrubal. He did have two brothers named Hasdrubal. What's the name of the brothers on that Newhart show? This is my brother. Was it Dwayne and my other brother Dwayne? Were they Dwaynes? They weren't Dwaynes. They were two brothers with the same name. Remember on the second Bob Newhart show? Daryl. I'm Daryl, and this is my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl. Okay, Jacob Belcheck. Second try for Monday has no political implications, so I wasn't sure where to put it. Hail Bill, hail Jacob. As a young man myself, the status of my particular subcategory of American is of particular interest to me. I saw a breakdown of the conditions that the current generation of men my age, 20 to 30 or so, experience, and broadly speaking, they are aggressively socialized against masculinity, competition, rough play, etc. throughout their early school years, essentially treated as defective girls. These are the people I feel so sorry for. Products of single mother households with little to no input from a strong male role model. Debt written due to college degree for a subject that held no particular strong interest to them, but that they got simply because it was the thing to do, and subsequently employed in a job where the work just hard enough to avoid getting fired. Reluctant and unhappy consumers of pornography because the sexual impulse demands gratification, but the women around them ignored, despise, or are unfaithful or for the streets. Slowly coming to realize that the system they've been imprisoned in has been very cruel to them and that no one seems to care, or worse, tells them that they deserve it. As a result, I feel a seething fury building up in much of my generation that is beginning to wonder if civilization they're living in is worth preserving, never mind participating in. What would you say to this generation? I'd have a lot to say to this generation. There are times that, and these times are becoming more frequent, that I'm beginning to think my mission in life is to speak to people like you. You have been for older generations. It takes a conscious effort to look at the tail end of the millennials or Gen Zs and all of their pathologies. It takes a conscious effort to say that you didn't ask for this. You didn't ask to be raised this way. This was done to you, not done by you. Because the pathologies are so primally irritating to older generations. To use a stereotype, and I want to acknowledge it's a stereotype, but whining and complaining are considered to be reprehensible qualities among boomers and to some degree Gen Xers, and certainly the greatest generation, people that raised me. I whine a lot compared to the people that raised me. They didn't whine at all. And when you hear whining, it causes a biological response, an emotional response that we're not even really aware of. It's just like, what's the matter with you, with these people? And I make a conscious effort to do this often and to do it with other people. You didn't ask for this. You didn't ask to be raised this way. You didn't ask to be raised without fathers. You didn't ask to be raised in participation trophy world where you were never allowed to fail. This business about being treated as defective girls is absolutely correct. Feminism has utterly destroyed the men of that generation and made the women into just a bunch of hoes. They're for the streets. I've been very, very sympathetic. I continue to be sympathetic towards the whole MGTOW movement, the men going their own way movement. I understand how destructive it is to society, but it's really about the only thing left for my boys to do. You know, I'm on the side of the guys on this one. There was a time when girls were taught they can be nurses or teachers if they don't want to be mommies, and no one's saying that should be the case again. But that became, you can be anything but mommies, and that motherhood was awful, and this idea that women, see, that ultimately, in terms of the relationship with women, feminists have told 3 generations of women that they can be as promiscuous as men and should be. And biology doesn't work that way, because if you have a promiscuous encounter, one person walks away with baggage and the other person doesn't, and it's the female that walks away with the baggage, and then you get into the whole abortion thing, and then since you've got to have the abortion thing, that gets the society socializing women to believe that you're not a real woman unless you're enthusiastic about killing your own children. That's how far things have gotten out of balance. The maternal instinct has not only been smothered, it's been inverted. Feminists' entire position is, if you're not 100% behind enthusiastically celebrating abortion, then you're not a real woman, which is antithetical to what maternal instincts are. And males prior to your generation, Jacob, had been socialized to give their lives for females because females in turn would nurture the young. But when females are not only not nurturing the young and not being nurturing at all, but rather on the contrary trying to compete to see who could be the most masculine, the most violent, the most aggressive, the most obnoxious, and their entire mantra politically and intellectually is, we should be able to abort our children anytime we want to. And when we say our children, I mean your children and my children. I have the power to take the life of this child, and what you say about it just because you're the father has nothing to do with the equation. Yeah, this leads us, Colonel Angus says, this leads us back to Baal in the person of Margaret Sanger. Yes, it's Moloch. So the way I would repair the problem is the only way I know how to repair the problem. I don't know how to knit. I do know how to change spark plugs. So I can't work the female side of the equation. I can only work the male side of the equation because that's the only side of the equation I understand. But the first thing I would do if I was doing a Gen Z Academy, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is I would just sit down and say, boys, let's just start with the basics. Here's a list of this is the fastest that a woman has ever run. This is the heaviest weight that a woman has ever lifted, and I just list a couple of these Olympic statistics. Then I would say this last year, 22,565 college boys ran faster than the fastest woman has ever run. And the same thing with the weight, and the same thing with the endurance and all the rest of it. You are faster, you're stronger, and this one takes a little bit of explaining. You're smarter than women are, and you're also more stupid on an individual basis. I don't mean one individual, but men as a sex compared to females are both smarter and stupider than women. Vorpal Penny said, I thought you were a theater guy in the past. They never taught you or never learned to sew to make costumes. No, I had to take a costume class. It was my least favorite part of the whole thing. But males have a wider bell curve than females because nature can afford to experiment with males because males are expendable. And because we're expendable, we're wired for risk, which is why we do all the cool things. All the cool things. Anytime there's ever anything that needs to be done, hey, you want to ride on this, it's the males that step forward. It's males that step forward into burning buildings. It's the males that'll be the first one on a zip line. It'll be it's males that'll be doing skateboard tricks. I'm not saying there aren't female skateboarders. I'm just saying anytime there's something that has to be tried, men are wired to try it, and that's why, in a strange sort of way, Kirk's bamboo bazooka just beat me to it. I can't believe he beat me to it. This is why I have such high respect for Jackass. I just have such high respect for them. Yes, some of them will be trying to launch bottle rockets from their butt. I get it. But what Jackass was about was that glory is eternal, but pain is fleeting. And by glory, what's the glory in Jackass? I mean, why is the show called Jackass? It's not like these guys are going to get state medals. What does Johnny Knoxville and Steve-O, what do they get for this pain that they go through? And they go through some incredible amount of pain. What do they get? They get the respect and the affection of their fellow men, because all of this is done not to so much impress their brothers, but to show them that the respect of their peers is more important to them than pain. And I'm talking about a lot of pain. And because men have a wider bell curve, they are dumber than women on average, but they're also smarter than women. All of these the major scientific breakthroughs in history are done by males, and the leading research are done by males. Now, females will say, well, that's because women were never allowed to compete. There's no question that there's some truth in that, but Albert Einstein did his theory of relativity while he was bored at a patent office in Bern, Switzerland. But more importantly, no one has been keeping women out of the sciences or mathematics or whatever, certainly for the last 30, 40 years, and probably longer. And it's just not there. Men have different brains than women do, biologically different brains, and to deny that is to deny a lot of science. Men are better at logical thinking than women are. Women are more intuitive, and men have a part of the brain that men have a part of the brain that have the ability to see things in 3 dimensions. So in other words, I'm looking at my coffee cup here on the desk, and without any trouble whatsoever, I can imagine myself on the other side of that coffee cup, looking up and looking at myself, and I can clearly see exactly where everything would be. The handle would be on the left. I'd be looking up at the lip. I'd see up. I can just position myself anywhere in 3D space and see how this table would look without any effort at all. It's a part of the brain that males have. It's why men are good at reading maps and women not as good as reading maps. Conversely, females have a part of their brain dedicated to nuances of expression. It's famously reproduced experiment where they will show men pictures of people with very subtle expressions on their faces, and men are unable to determine what that person is feeling, but women just, oh, that guy's sad, he's depressed, he's jealous, he's whatever. So the thing that needs to be said about this, because I don't want to be misunderstood about this, I'm not saying that men are better than women. I'm saying that they're different, and that men have strengths and women have strengths. But we live in a society that is so overly feminized that only female strengths have been lauded in the last 3 generations. And worse, the things that women are good at have been told by feminists that they're not supposed to be good at that. They need to go out and try to be good at the things that men are good at, and they're not built for it. So don't argue with exceptions, because I'm not talking to you specifically, Robin, but anybody who says, well, I know a woman who the exceptions prove nothing. The 2 fastest women on the ground are women. 2 fastest humans on the ground are women. No, they're not. 330 miles per hour at the traps. What is that? Is that drag racing? No, the fastest person on the ground is the guy who took that British car supersonic at it wasn't at Bonneville, it was at another salt flat. Um, yeah, and Kirk's Bamboo Bazooka points out Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus was a book by John Gray, bestseller in the 80s. I remember the book, but that's really it. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, are from different places. And young men like you, Jacob, have been told that the place you come from uh, is not a good place. Well, they're wrong. You see this all the time. I see a lot of these videos of just lots and lots of pop culture videos and on the street interviews, and they'll go up to women and say, "Do you need men in society?" And all these women go, "No, we don't need men. There's no need for men." These girls are dumb as a box of hammers. They can't do anything. But the other thing I would do is I would show you that, I don't know if it was Survivor, but it was something like this. They did an episode of a show, either Survivor or something like Survivor, where they put 10 men on one island and 10 women on another island. And 2 hours into this, the men have divided up into teams. Some guys are going into the jungle to get, palm fronds to create the thatched roof. Other guys are starting to peel, things so that they can make vines to tie the things together. They've already got an outline of what the lean-tos are going to look like for the first night. They've got plans to build, the bigger thing. There's hunting parties that are already out there. The women are on the beach getting a suntan. And then the men are doing so much better than the women that they introduce baby piglets to the island, which the men immediately spear and have themselves an absolutely fantastic barbecue. And the little baby piglets walk into the women's camp, and the women start petting them, and they start giving them names, and and they become pets, and then the women are starving to death. And the guys they're working on it's like the professor on Gilligan's Island. The guys are working on bamboo powered radios, and they've got cars that and they're working on a palm from skyscraper, and the girls are just sitting there complaining. So it's not that women don't contribute. It's just that this society is so out of balance, feminized. And I don't want to live in an overly feminized society. I've looked at Nazi Germany. I don't want to live in an overly masculinized society either. So that's the boy-girl thing. The exposure to porn is more than just... I was listening to, earlier today, I was listening to clips from the Whatever podcast, where they had a bunch of women on there who were from OnlyFans, and I think OnlyFans is probably the single most destructive thing that has hit this society, certainly in the last 10 years and maybe in my lifetime. For those of you who are not familiar, OnlyFans is basically a way for any individual person to become a porn star. Any 18-year-old girl can go to OnlyFans, set up her webcam, and perform sex acts for money. And some of these women are making tens of millions of dollars a month. But any woman, and I mean any woman, can make more money than most waitresses by just basically masturbating on their webcam. And a lot of women are taking this up, and they don't understand, and they cry and say it's unfair when you tell them that there's not a man who's worth a damn on this earth who is ever going to marry them, because they've been they've been charging hundreds or thousands of men to see them naked. Look, anytime you see tattoos on women's chests, who are those tattoos for? Right? Who are they there to impress? Well, they're there to impress guys. And these women have body counts at 200, 300. This one woman very famously is I don't know if she's done it or trying to do it, trying to sleep with 1,000 men in one session. I've already been brought this kind of subject up before, and I had a number of people in the comment section say, change the subject. I don't want to hear about this from you. Okay, but I didn't bring this question up. I think that the MGTOW, the men going their own way movement, is the only thing that men can do. It's a temporary solution, but it's the only thing that they can do. They they hook up on a dating app, they smash for a night, and then they go back to playing their video games, and these women are sleeping with all these guys, and they're treating most of them like crap. All of them want the Chad. All of them, they have. You see these. I just see it again and again and again. You see these women, overweight women, stuffed into these tight dresses, like 24 sardines in a 20 sardine can, and you ask them to name 3 countries and they can't do it, and they think they're going to land a guy who's a millionaire, who's 6'4", and when you ask them why they think they're going to land this guy, they say because they're worth it, because they're 10s. You ask them to rate themselves, they all rate themselves as 10s. They're 4s. And Kenneth Samuels said, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, and you can't use 7. That's a brilliant piece of work. Samuelson? I can't remember. I watched all of his videos for a while there a year ago. I thought he was terrific, and he died of a heart attack. Kenneth? But he said, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. You can't use 7. No, not Sam Kennison. He was Kevin Samuelson, right? The Godfather. It'll come up in a second. He died a little over a year or 2 years ago. He was a black man. Samuels. Kevin Samuels, yeah. Kevin Samuels was a black man image coach, and he had women call him in, and he would critique them honestly, and what he told them was just simply brutal. He would just brutal. I loved him. I just loved him. And he didn't start out cruel, but he'd say, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, can't use a 7. And that's challenging, because that means you're either a 6 or an 8. And most people who think they're good looking don't want to go as low as 6. But if you've got any sense of, if somebody asked me to rate myself on a scale of 1 to 10 and I couldn't use 7, I would say on a bad day I'm a high 6, and on a really great day I might be a low 8. On a really great day. But if you'd asked me that same question in my 20s, I would have said 4. On a good day. Anyway, your question, Jacob, is so complex. That rage is going to go someplace. I was looking at something just before I fired up the stream tonight, and Roadrunner says, I'd rate you. Oh, Lady Hawk. I'm sorry, he's talking to Lady. I thought he was talking to me. I got pretty eyes, though. Thank you very much. I have black eyes, like a doll's eyes. They're actually brown, but they come off black on camera for some reason. Yeah, and these women are rating themselves, and even the ones that are genuinely hot are so stupid that you couldn't sit and talk to them for 15 minutes, let alone marry them. I mean, it's just amazing. Hair is a 9. Thank you. The hair carries the face. And this is new. I probably have a higher rating if I comb my hair back. Well, we can find out the answer to that question right now. I kind of like the. I mean, I think it looks pretty good both ways. But you know, Eric Blake is very impressed. Anyway, Jacob, I'd like you to come back with more questions that are like that. I just went from a 5.5 to a 5.8. That's excellent. That's a gain. Now there you go. That's what you get. Too bad. Yeah. Joe Sebia, I think that's the first time we've seen that name over there. Hey, Joe. Says 230-pound baby mamas with 3 kids wanting guys with 6-figure incomes. Yes, plus a 6 foot plus a 6-pack. And they believe they're going to get it. They've been told that all they have to do is put it out there. Put it out there and then the universe will answer. You don't believe in God, but you believe in the universe. The universe will provide. Okay, well, you're all going to be very disappointed. This is called hitting the wall. When women reach the point when they realize not going to happen. And that's, anyway, I was saying, just before we fired up the stream, I saw something, a link to something about it was actually from Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor sent an email, and he sent a link to something that I want to see, and it's a channel called What If All This, and he's talking about the mental health crisis for your generation. And he's put out an episode that millennials and Gen Z, and he put out an episode called The Coming Psychological Black Death. That I'm going to watch. The Coming Psychological Black Death. That's real. And Jacob, buddy, I don't want you to go through that. And I don't want your friends to go through that. I don't want any of my boys to go through that. I'll tell you one thing. The people that are going to have to change the most are the women. They're the ones that are by far the most out of balance. They're so aggressive. They're so masculine. They're so argumentative. Honestly, you watch them on get your bingo cards out. You watch them on police body cam videos, and the police will say, "Stop being so argumentative," and instantly out of the. I'm not argumentative. It's a Monty Python sketch. I'm not argumentative. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. So, yeah. P7 says, I got 6-pack abs. Just keep my 6-pack in an insulated container. David Booty's got it right. Bitches be cray-cray. They be delulu. And they cap all the time. So, anyway, there we go. But I came in for abuse. That's just down the hall. Jacob, come back with more specific questions. Not that this one wasn't specific enough. I just can't spend any more time on it. But brother, don't let it wreck you. You've got you're born an American male. It's as good as life gets, pal. Yeah, P7 says it's clear in those videos that the officer's the first one in their lives that have ever said no and meant it. Yep. You're under arrest. No, I'm not. Turns out you are. That's why I like watching them. Somebody pointed that out once in the comments section of these police body cam videos. Somebody said, I don't know why I'm so hooked on these things. I cannot put them down. I cannot stop watching them. What is it? And somebody else said, you like justice. You've got a desire to see justice. You've seen all of these people behaving reprehensibly, and you go to the police body cam videos because there's justice. They get arrested. More than half the time, well more than half the time, 3/4 of the time or more, they get probation, or they don't, they spit on an officer, they punch an officer in the face, and they get the charges dismissed by one of George Soros's DAs. But those days are coming to an end. So they are coming to an end. One thing that is really shocking about your generation, Jacob, and I don't know how to explain that other than the fact that probably because you weren't allowed to play rough, but I've seen it among men and women, and that is on these body cam videos. Whenever they're being arrested, every single one of them is, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't touch me, don't. I've never seen people behave so, don't touch me, you can't touch me, I don't want you touching me. It's like, come, chill out, don't touch me. That's a that's we don't behave that way. If I got pulled over for a traffic ticket and somebody said, DUI, and they said, turn around, put your hands behind your back, I put your hands behind your back. And if the guy's going to grab me by the arm and walk me to the car, I'm not going to be screaming, don't touch me. I'm expecting to get touched. In fact, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that he touches me as little as possible. That's right. I'm going to turn to him. Eric Blake got it. I said, get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape! P7 says, I like it when people complain about how many officers are involved in the arrest. Oh, yeah, you're all thinking you're such badasses. It took 7 cops. Took 7 cops for you to put me in a car. It took 7 cops for me to put you in the car. No, lady, it would have only taken 1 cop to put you in the car. It takes 7 cops to put you in the car without hurting you. 1 cop could put you in the car very easily. You just knock your teeth in. You'd get in that car right quick. And that'd be the end of all of this pigs and all that. It takes 7 cops to put you in the car without hurting them. You damn dirty macaque. Yeah, let's see you without that badge on. I don't know if you want to take that bet, Scooter. Anyway, Jacob, come back with some specifics next time, okay? Not because this wasn't good, it's great. On the contrary, I feel a very, very strong, impulse to help as much as I can, because you and your brothers, if you hear the truth, you'll know the truth. All you need to do is hear it, and you'll know it's true. And when you see things like virtually every track team in high school in America, high schoolers are faster than FloJo, the fastest woman who ever ran. And you see and you need to see things like the video of the American women's Olympic team playing 15-year-old boys and getting their asses handed to them 12-0, or playing against one-legged men and losing, or playing against former semi-professional soccer players, guys in their 50s, going up against the United States women's Olympic team and kicking the snot out of them. I mean, beating them by 12 points, which apparently is a lot in that so-called game. So we'll see. Anyway. All right, so we got one more, I think. And I can go home and get some food. Yeah. Let's Go Brandon said, didn't a high school boys team trounce the medaling women's team in Australia? Yes, they did. But it's not fair that men get paid more than women in sports. Yeah, it is. In fact, there would be no NBA if it wasn't subsidized by I'm saying there'd be no WNBA if it wasn't subsidized by the NBA. So the women say, we should get paid more than as much as the men. The men are taking part of their paycheck just so you can continue to play ball, because you can't afford, no one watches. There's a couple of Australian commenters that got a YouTube channel called The Bearing, and his wife's got a separate channel. His name I can't really repeat here. And I just really like them a lot. They're just sassy. And she was talking about in Australia, this woman went to a bank and wanted a loan so she could open an all-female sports bar, and the bank said that's a terrible idea. So she sunk her entire life savings into it, and opened up an all-women's sports bar, and all they did was play on the TV was women's sports, and they were out of business in 5 months, and she lost everything. Yes, dude, McMahon knows of her. I love them. I think they're really fun. And speaking of Australians, Ted and Zara, father and daughter team, I adore them. They just lip sync and do these dances, and Dad's just a goofball, and she is, the girl is 8 or 9 and has got so much natural charisma. She's just, the two of them together, and they're always laughing. It's just makes you feel good because it's so wholesome, and the love between the father and the daughter and the teasing and everything. Plus, every now the wife and the son get involved, and I love Ted and Zara. I love them. I love that channel, and I love them. I think they make me happy. I sometimes go to them when I'm having a bad day. Yeah. Anyway, Song, yeah, has got a fan of the Bearings, and his wife. We have standards here. We have a conservative audience, and it's not a terribly bad name. But anyway, you either know of them or not. But Bearing is really good, and she's off and on Bearing. More often than not, she's on the Bearing show, and you don't get to see their faces. They just have animated bears, so it's cool. Dave Big Booty got it right. Yes. Okay, so last one. Eric Blake, tonight, the case of the detractors' deference. So, Bill, remember when George Snuffleupagus was forced to donate around $15 million to the construction of the Trump Presidential Library? I do. Well, as it turns out, another former adversary, not to be outdone, will promptly top that donation, a $22 million donation to said library fund, courtesy of Mr. Zuckerberg. I wasn't aware of this. So Mark Zuckerberg was apparently sued for defamation. So I'm not aware of any financial pledges from Bezos yet, but I'm fairly certain it's inevitable. Constant string of wealthy former enemies bending the knee, kissing the ring, and pledging tribute. It's a joy to behold, isn't it? It is a joy to behold. Watching Zuckerberg especially all of a sudden go, I'm just think Donald Trump is swell. Makes me happy. He doesn't want his empire broken up, and neither do the rest of these tech giants. But I want big tech destroyed. Big tech Delinda est. And I want that a lot. So yeah. Yeah. Heck with Trump's new ambassador appointments to Hollywood, imagine if Bob Iger makes a donation. Even without the lawsuits, the left is imploding, and they're not going to get it back. This is what makes me so happy. I'm tempted to say, yes, we're on a roll now, but it's the top of the Ferris wheel and so on, and I'm not going to say we're going to win forever, but the left got everything they got over the last 4 years with the news media and the pop culture, and there is no more pop culture, and there is no more mainstream news media. They're both gone. They've destroyed them both. The news media was selling not news, but credibility, and their credibility is shot. Hollywood was selling storytelling, and now they're selling lecturing, and their credibility and affection is shot. The weapons that the left used to influence public opinion are gone, and those weapons cannot be used again. This is a fundamental thing that people need to understand. It's not just that they're in retreat. They're in retreat, and their swords are broken, and they cannot reforge them. They can't un-F themselves. And this is what's really, 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 really exciting about all that. So yeah, Eric, I love it. I think it's great. Zuckerberg, when he had his hair really closely shaved and was staring into the... Zuckerberg has had an upgrade to his titanium outer hull. He's looking considerably more human than he did during the days where he was at those hearings. Yeah. So, yeah, everything's looking pretty good. Looking really good. So, anyway, Gumman says we cannot let up on them. Nope, we need to push it. We need to run them into the river, man. Run them into the river and have them on their knees begging for surrender. And once it's clear to them that they've lost and they have given up all hope, then you let them up easy, but not until they know they're defeated and beaten. Steve Young, AOEC, said Disney was selling magic, now they're selling ideology. Yeah, and it's a crummy ideology on top of it. P7 says the 600 series had rubber skin. We spotted the Beasley. Well, the Zuckerberg 9000 is considerably more lifelike, although it's still not very convincing. Oh wow, 2.5 hours. It's a long time. I thought I was doing a short show, but that's not too bad. I can live with 2.5 hours. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go home and get some food because I'm a hungry hippo. and my wife is recovering remarkably well. She's very, very pain sensitive, Natasha, and has been through medieval levels of dentistry from back in the Soviet days and stuff. So I promised her this one wouldn't hurt, and I was there with her during the whole procedure, holding her hand, and got her the top of line anesthetic. She was on codeine for the first 12 hours. Codeine is nasty stuff. I've never liked codeine, but it got her through the first 24 hours, the first 12 hours. And now she's on ibuprofen, and she's not feeling a thing. So that's great. She took enough nitrous, just didn't seem to have any effect at all on her. She was just breathing it, and still very, very worried, and said, "Honey, you got to take these deep breaths, or else we're going to have to use that nitrous tank. We're just going to have to hit you on the head with it." I'm paying for the nitrous. We're going to get some kind of effect out of this thing. Yeah, codeine is not my drug of choice. I will give everybody, I will give her the best wishes from all of you, very, very kind and lovely people who are wishing her well. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. You probably know this by now, but the show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who keep the lights on, as it were. We just got a new set of lights. I was going to open it tonight, but I'll do it tomorrow. Get in early, and get the set lit, and then emails go out to Mike Rowe and Johnny Voight and Gary Sinise, and perhaps James Woods. Definitely James Woods. He hasn't said yes yet, but I get the feeling he probably will. He had very kind words to say when I texted him after the fire, so it'd be fun to talk to him about playing the heavy. Interesting thing about James Woods that I want to talk to Jim about is what do you, because again, this thing is about story mechanics, is a lot about how you build movies and stories. And the interesting thing about James Woods is that James Woods is unbelievably menacing, but he's not physically intimidating. He's just sheer intellectually scary. And I love preparing little one-liners for my guests, and don't tell them this, but when I get to interview them, one of the things I'm going to say is, James, it's good news and bad news. It is widely recognized that you're the smartest guy in Hollywood. That's the good news. Bad news is, it is just a crazy low bar to clear. Yeah, he's a smart guy. He went to MIT. I love those backhanded compliments. I'm going to tell Mike Rowe, I said, we started a show off, and brand new show was talk about storytelling, and we wanted to start the show off with a bang. We wanted to open with a real celebrity, somebody who will really get people's attention, and somebody who's beloved by everybody and who's ever seen him. We weren't able to do that, but Mike Rowe was able to come in, and we're real glad to have you, Mike. I love those kind of reversal instincts. Insults, rather. Most people in Hollywood can't even spell MIT. James helped Melissa Milano rescue her horses from the fire. I'll bet you Melissa Milano would have prayed that James Woods' horses had died in a fire. That's the difference between us and them. I'm glad I'm on the side I'm on. All right, that'll do it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Short-ass bastard says, I love this break from Airstrip 1. Hello to all of our friends off on Airstrip 1, and we're awful happy to see you guys over there. And don't lament on Airstrip 1. This is a worldwide revolution, and it's coming your way. Canada's going to go return to sanity next, and Britain will get its turn. So there we go. Okay, that'll do it. Thanks again for joining us. It's been great seeing everybody. We will see you Monday night for the Stratosphere Studio, and until then, thanks for being with us, YouTube, and good night, and thanks for all the fish.